Hello dear listener, please subscribe to our channel. Enjoy watching. Having obtained some time off during the first days of my weekend, I headed to the countryside house to prepare it for the summer and simply to have some time alone, away from everything and everyone. It's not that I was complaining about life, but occasionally I felt the need for solitude. I worked as a doctor in a psychiatric hospital where I often had to listen to patients' cries and stories, as well as numerous complaints from some of the nurses almost every day about how difficult patients could be or how they shared something interesting. Although my profession had accustomed me to long conversations, sometimes it became tiresome and my mind craved silence. When I arrived at our farm and parked in the yard scattered with small branches and leaves, I stepped out onto the green grass, which in some places formed soft carpets. I took off my shoes with socks and tossed them aside, feeling a surge of energy from nature. There was no one around for miles, just trees, fields, and our house with a small shed. Standing in that position with my eyes closed for a few minutes, I went to check the condition of the house. We hadn't been here for several months, and it had been locked up with no one to look after it. As I approached the door, I noticed from a few meters away that one of the windows on the right was shattered. However, since I had long installed metal grates on the windows, I assumed that no one had managed to get inside. The lock on the door was also intact. Apparently some hooligans had come here and tried to climb in through the window, but they had left empty-handed. Just to be sure, I quickly looked around. Apart from the broken glass, everything seemed to be in its place. Satisfied that everything was fine, I returned to the veranda and sat on my favorite rocking bench, tired from the journey. I leaned back and closed my eyes, feeling a gentle breeze brushing against my face. I felt drowsiness trying to take over my consciousness, and I even dozed off for a few minutes. Though I couldn't tell exactly how long, when I opened my eyes, I felt a renewed sense of alertness, and the fatigue had receded somewhat. I had a couple of days to get the house in order before my wife could take a day off from work and come with our son for a joint vacation. After unloading groceries and drinks from the car, I carried them into the house and arranged them on the refrigerator shelves. I didn't rush into cleaning at first, as there wasn't much to clean. We usually left the house relatively tidy when we left. My main tasks were to check if everything was in working order and if there were any malfunctions that had occurred while we were away, as well as to refuel and test the generator. I knew every nook and cranny in this house. After all, I had grown up here. Unfortunately, it had come into my possession under tragic circumstances when I was 18. A powerful tornado had passed through this area, and my parents, who were in the field at the time, didn't survive the storm. I was in the city for my studies at that time. After the tragedy, I spent some time rebuilding the damaged parts of the house. A few years later, I got married, and Donna helped me restore the former coziness. However, for the most part, we lived in the city, where we met and worked. Donna preferred city life, and we would come to my old house for vacations. Our vacations coincided with me having a couple of days off earlier, so I decided to start preparing for our quiet and peaceful getaway. Donna only called me a couple of times while I was there, but it didn't distract me. On the contrary, I told her that we needed to buy some additional supplies to ensure we had enough for the next few days. 2 days passed without anyone disturbing me, and I managed to do everything required on the first day. The rest of the time, I spent mostly on the lawn in front of the house under a large, deciduous tree, trying to meditate a bit, although I wasn't very successful. So I simply indulged in daydreams and reminisced about the good moments of my life. On the third day, when I went out to my spot in the morning, I noticed a gray sedan approaching from a distance, in which my wife and son were getting closer. She stepped out of the car and embraced me as if she hadn't seen me in years, while Drake was more reserved. At his mother's request, he took a few bags from the car and went to carry them into the house. "Donna, did you leave at night or something?" I asked. No, I didn't. I just hit a clear road and managed to avoid traffic in the city. It helped save time. And here we are. "Drake, there are 2 more bags in the trunk. Bring them, please," she called out to her son. You know, I've even started to miss these places. It's so peaceful here, I remarked. I know, but on the other hand, it's so remote that the network barely catches, and there's no one to talk to, and the stores are far away. And if something happens, it's a long way to the hospital. Yeah, you probably won't ever change. Just look at how peaceful it is here. Oh, Dennis, you should have become a hermit instead of getting married. Alright, let's go. I'll show you how I fixed the window. What happened to the window? Nothing serious. It got damaged a bit while we were away. I led her to the window, part of which had already been covered with plywood. What happened to the glass? Did it break? No, when I arrived it was already broken. I don't know if it was vandals or maybe the wind. But I don't have anything to replace it with right now, so it'll have to stay like this for a while. We entered the house, where we needed to unpack the bags she had brought, and Donna wanted to prepare some food, suspecting that I had been eating whatever I could find in these 2 days. Although I assured her that my stomach had been fine, she affectionately scolded me for not even making an effort to take care of myself. I made myself some eggs. Drake was already sitting in a corner at the table, opening his laptop. "Dad, is there still no internet here?" he asked, sounding offended when we came in. "No, there isn't. But that's great. You don't leave the house because of that computer anyway. You could go for a walk and get some fresh air." "Oh man, this is brutal," he said, closing his laptop and heading upstairs. "Don't you think he's spoiled?" I asked my wife. These gadgets have completely consumed him. Does he even have real friends? "I heard everything. I'm fine," shouted my son from the top of the stairs. "See?" Donna smiled. "He's just modern and used to the city." With everything we needed on the table, my wife began preparing a proper meal. "Dennis, could you help me?" she asked, pushing some pieces of meat toward me. "They need to be cut into smaller pieces and pounded. I'll take care of them afterward. Listen, I found our old grill in the barn. It's still in pretty good shape. Maybe we can have a barbecue outside?" I suggested, practically drooling. "Sounds great. You go ahead with that. And then I'll handle the salad and some other things," she agreed. I gathered the necessary ingredients in a bowl and went outside to prepare the rest. Soon, from a distance, you could see that life had returned to our house. A little later, I called my son for help, but he reluctantly declined, saying he was trying to chat with his friends. He had connected his mobile phone instead of a modem, and since the data was limited, he didn't want to miss the chance to complain to his buddies that he had been sent to the edge of the world where, in his opinion, civilization ended. "Mom, I've set things up a bit, so if you need to, you can go online for a short while." "Thank you, dear, but I don't need it right now. Maybe tomorrow. Dad asked for your help, remember? Maybe you should go after all. We came here to spend some time in nature after all." "Oh, please don't tell me you're thrilled about this," he replied critically. "You weren't exactly enthusiastic about coming here yourself." "Drake, don't argue. Yes, I like the city, but family should be together. And such a break is sometimes very beneficial." I sat on the veranda at that moment, and I could hear their conversation through the open window. It was a bit strange to hear her express some admiration for country life. But maybe she was just trying to instill this in her son's mind. I decided not to interfere and continued to relax outside. Later, my son joined me. He sat down next to me just as I finished flipping the meat pancakes, and after glancing around asked me, "Listen, Dad, it's not so bad here, actually." "I'm glad you noticed," I replied. "Dad, I'd like to invite a couple of friends here. We're stuck here for a whole week after all. What am I supposed to do here? You and Mom can always find something to do, being old and all. But what about me? Listen to you behind the door, or play hide-and-seek by myself? I don't even have any siblings. I'm just getting bored and going crazy here." Of course, I didn't want anyone else here besides us. After all, the plan was for us to come here as a family to relax, not to have a party every evening. But I didn't want to disappoint him right away either. I told him I would think about it, and for now I asked him to pretend that we are a happy family and try to spend some time with us in nature. Drake didn't show genuine enthusiasm for my proposal, but he stayed with me by the grill, waiting for the meat dish to be ready. The first day of our vacation went relatively well. The weather was fantastic, and we spent almost the entire day outdoors. Only when it started getting dark did Drake go to his room, apparently to try to contact his friends. I understood him. He was young, and hanging out with his parents wasn't very exciting for him. However, I wanted him to also detach himself from the hustle and bustle of the city. As it began to get darker, I lit a small campfire to add some romance, as it was just Donna and me. She brought a couple of blankets, but I didn't need one at the moment. She bundled up and sat down next to me, leaning in. "Do you remember how it used to be?" she asked. "Back then we even roasted marshmallows. I wish I had brought some with me. It would have been a nice trip down memory lane." "Yes, of course. Those were good times. But I think it's pretty good now, too." We're sitting by the campfire just like before, under the stars, in the fresh air, with crickets singing to us. Gosh, you're such a romantic sometimes that I almost forget you spend your days with crazy people. How hasn't your sanity snapped yet? Well, first of all, they're just mentally ill individuals. And secondly, I don't think about them outside of work. Let's not talk about them. Everything's so good right now. Don't spoil the moment. Who's spoiling anything? I just ask. Or is that not allowed? Would you like some beer? Or maybe we should open a bottle of wine. I decided to change the subject. Actually, I think wine would be better. Go ahead and I'll rustle up the fire in the meantime. I went to search for wine in the kitchen, thinking that Donna had brought some. However, I couldn't find a bottle in the fridge. In the fridge or the cupboards. Remembering that there might still be a few bottles in the basement, I armed myself with a flashlight and went searching. The light bulb there had burnt out, so I used the flashlight to illuminate the rough stone steps leading down. During the time I was alone here, I had completely forgotten about this part of the house. Otherwise, I would have fixed the wiring and cleared away some of the cobwebs that hung almost everywhere. Various junk was piled up along the walls, but in the distance, I noticed a shelf also cluttered with stuff. However, on one of the shelves, I found what I needed. Shining the light closer, I selected one and soon returned to my wife. As I approached, I noticed that she was typing something on her phone's keyboard. "To whom are you writing?" I asked. "You've only just arrived, and you're already missing your friends." She hid her phone, took the glasses I handed her, and began pouring some of the red drink. "Oh, just something I remembered. I wanted to send a quick message. I promised to let Christine know that I arrived and how I'm spending my time here." "Is she your mom?" I teased. Donna shot me a critical look. "What?" I asked. "Am I not right? You're too cut off from the outside world. We're not in therapy. If you don't want to, that's fine. But our son and I have the right to maintain relationships with our friends." "Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted the outside world not to bother us for a while." I changed the subject, and we mostly chatted about ourselves and our son, or simply sat in silence, watching the flames of the fire. The next day, when I woke up, my wife wasn't in bed anymore. Stretching lazily, I went downstairs, hoping to find her there. And there I found her in the kitchen, engaged in a rather unusual activity for her. "What are you doing?" I asked her, still half asleep. She stood by the window with a cloth, dipping it into foamy water in a deep bowl and smoothly gliding it over the glass, giving it a cleaner look. I decided to do a bit of cleaning. "Why? But you've never done anything like this before." That's why I was surprised. "Are you saying I never clean at home?" "Well, if we consider your cleaning to be the robotic vacuum cleaner, washing machine, and dishwasher." "Okay, stop it. I just needed to do something, so I thought, you look good doing it," I smiled. Donna put the cloth down and went to make coffee. She asked if I wanted breakfast and also fried a couple of eggs for me. The morning was quiet and calm, with no shouts or car noises outside, just the chirping of birds. It was what I had been dreaming of for so long. "Dennis, I need to go to the city today. There's something I need to do urgently." My wife shattered my tranquility. "What? But we just arrived." "Why do you suddenly need to go there so urgently?" "I need to take care of something for work. And I also need to visit Christine. Something happened to her. And I'll bring some supplies here while I'm at it." "When do you plan to leave?" "How long will you be gone?" "I can't say for sure right now. Maybe for a few hours. For you, anything you want me to bring? Maybe some beer?" "No, I have everything I need for the time I plan to spend here. Ask Drake if he needs anything. He always seems to want something. The only thing I would like is for you not to go anywhere. I've been looking forward to this vacation for so long, but you didn't consult me when you made the plans. I agreed to try spending a whole week here, but, I can't completely detach from my work. I may be on vacation, but work still keeps me busy. Donna, sometimes I feel like work is just an excuse to avoid being alone with me. I've noticed that you've been distancing yourself from me for a while now. Maybe you could tell me what's bothering you? You're just imagining things, she smiled. Nothing has changed. It's just that you talk to psychos so often that you've developed paranoia. Don't bring my work into this. I interrupted her. It's not related. I can see through you, What's the secret you're keeping? Hey, you're starting to talk to me like a patient. What's with these mind games you're playing? I said I needed to go to the city, so that's how it is. And don't bother me anymore, she snapped and left the kitchen. I'll get ready. The sooner I leave, the sooner I'll be back. Yes, I had noticed some changes in her behavior over the past few months, especially as she got promoted and had more responsibilities in the department. Sometimes she stayed late at work, sometimes she came home tired, and sometimes she was irritable, leading to minor arguments between us. I always tried to accommodate her, avoiding any escalation of the conflicts. I valued my family and loved my son, and I didn't want our family to fall apart due to work-related issues. Somewhere around noon, Donna finally left for her errands, leaving a bunch of instructions for our son who was already getting bored. I decided to find something to keep him occupied and invited him for a walk in the forest so he could appreciate the beauty of the area where I grew up. A small woodland was located not far from our house, and we could reach it on foot in about half an hour. Drake wasn't thrilled about the idea, but since he had nothing else to do, he agreed. I packed everything we needed for the trip, and soon we were on our way. Did you bring mosquito repellent, I hope? You know how much I hate those? I hate those insects. My son is worried. Don't worry. I brought everything, taking into account that you might need it too. Yeah. Your backpack doesn't look that big. It's like you didn't bring much. That's just your impression. When we stop at the clearing, I'll show you everything. The key is to pack neatly and efficiently. Since you didn't want to help me get ready, you'll see how it can be organized later. Is there at least a river where we're going? It's getting hot. I wouldn't mind taking a dip. Yes, Drake, the place I'm taking you to is very beautiful. My father used to take me there often. He taught me everything he knew, and it's a great place to connect with nature and find harmony with it. Oh, Dad, you sound like some kind of philosopher. Maybe. I just wish your mom was here with us. I think she would have liked it. Why didn't we wait for her then? We could have gone together later. She didn't leave forever, Drake, to be honest, I'm kind of glad you and I got the chance to go camping together. Like father and son, I was trying to get him interested. What? What did I say? Why did you drag me? You and Mom could have come here yourselves. No one would have bothered you. You could have reminisced about your youth and sat around like old folks. Drake. What? What did I say? This place doesn't even have a network. How can anyone live in such isolation? I just don't understand. Yeah, you're all about modern technology. Both of you have become dependent on it. In my time, we found activities that were more interesting and useful than just sitting in a chair all day. Throughout the journey to our destination, I tried to convince him of the benefits of spending time in nature. But the only things he considered valuable were hanging out with friends and swimming. Maybe I expected too much from him, or perhaps I missed the moment when I should have instilled some of my values in him. Soon, we reached a small clearing where I suggested we set up the tent. My son asked if we were staying overnight, but I replied negatively. Firstly, we needed to return home by evening since his mother would be back from the city. And secondly, he was still young, and I didn't want him to be scared by any wild animals that might visit our camp at night. It pleased him. Also, a small lake began just a little further ahead. We stopped at the shore, which started with a shallow area. While Drake splashed around in the water, I lit a small campfire. Then I told him stories from my childhood, as well as some legends of this place, embellishing them slightly with modern phrases. Over the course of a few hours of conversation, Drake's attitude toward all of this began to change slightly. From his expression, I could tell that he understood that life was not just about computers and beer with friends. He even offered to help me tidy up the barn and asked why we weren't tending to the field. I explained to him that we were leasing it out because we didn't have the time to manage it ourselves. Maybe when you're older, your mom and I will move here, and then I'll go into farming. Maybe you'll want to settle here yourself, I said. Oh no, Dad, I've listened to you, of course, but I doubt I'd want to stay here forever. It's so remote. This place is only suitable for vacations. Don't rush, son. Life can always take you in very unexpected directions. We continued talking for a few more hours. I taught him what I knew. When it started to get dark, I said it was time to head back to the house. I hoped Donna had already returned and was waiting for us. But as we approached, I noticed that the windows were dark and her car was nowhere in sight. That's strange. She should have been back by now, I speculated. I think she probably decided to leave this godforsaken place, Drake expressed his opinion. Why jump to conclusions so quickly? Something might have happened. We entered the house and Donna was indeed not there yet. I took out my mobile phone and walked around the house in search of a better signal. Pausing on the top step of the stairs, I dialed my wife's number. She answered fairly quickly. Donna, when are you coming back? You promised to return before dark. Oh, Dennis, I probably won't make it today. I'll spend the night at home. Maybe I'll come tomorrow. What do you mean, maybe? I asked. Just that. You knew from the beginning that I wasn't thrilled about this idea. Besides, I have some urgent matters to attend to here. So, most likely you two will spend the weekend alone. Are you joking? We've been planning this for so long. No, Dennis, you were the one who planned it all. You did everything just the way you wanted. You didn't consider my interests or our son's. You're a psychologist. You should have seen that we didn't want this. I don't even recognize you, Donna. I'm just shocked. Drake is not as critical anymore. You should have seen him. We went hiking today and he enjoyed it. What? Did you drag my son into tick feeding? Have you completely lost your mind? Donna, what's gotten into you? I asked, trying to understand. I don't understand. You've changed so suddenly. What's going on? Listen, Dennis, I really don't have time right now. Let's talk later. She hung up, and I stood there trying to understand what had gone wrong. Everything seemed normal earlier in the morning. I descended downstairs in a gloomy mood. For a moment, the thought crossed my mind that Donna had taken a lover and was now making up various excuses just to avoid being with me. Although I had never noticed anything that could indicate she had someone else. No gifts, no messages, no mysterious phone calls. Everything had been going on as usual. For now, all I could do was accept the situation and hope that she would return to us the next day so we could continue our vacation together. The vacation I had been hoping for from the very beginning, in which I envisioned us isolated from the rest of the world, was now impossible. Because the next day, Donna found another reason not to come to our country house. My son only looked at me critically when I told him, "You see, Dad, I told you bringing us here was a mistake. Okay, for a day or two it's fine, but none of us can stand a whole week here." Why are you saying that? Did Mom say anything to you? Maybe she confided in you about something? What? Lately, she's only been thinking about herself. She even joined a fitness club, and I heard she made an appointment with a plastic surgeon. Didn't you know? That's surprising. You two are such a perfect couple leading separate lives, and now you're trying to divide me as well. Anyway, Dad, I'm 100% sure Mom won't come back here. So let's just leave ourselves. My friends are waiting for me in the city. My son delivered some shocking information to me. I really didn't know about some of my wife's plans, but what had prompted her to do all this? She knew perfectly well that I was completely satisfied with her. All right, son, maybe that's what we'll do. But not today. It's already late. We'll leave tomorrow morning. Drake, happy to get away from here, rushed to his room to pack his things so he wouldn't waste any time in the morning. Meanwhile, I poured myself a drink, trying to understand my wife's intentions. I wanted to understand why she'd been changing recently, and what had motivated her to change something about her body. The next day we headed home. Drake was thrilled to return to his old life. I, on the other hand, was saddened that I hadn't been able to spend quality time with my family, away from it all. But there was nothing I could do. It seemed that both of them had truly found their happiness amid the hustle and bustle of the city, and had no desire for a quiet, peaceful life. Upon arriving in the city, I decided to stop by the office to address some matters. Drake didn't want to wait for me. He said he had already made plans with his friends. He made plans with his friends and wanted to hang out with them. I let him go, and he said he would be home in the evening. At least someone was happy, I thought as I headed to the clinic. My colleague was a bit surprised that I had returned so early. I explained to him that the vacation had unexpectedly ended and I wanted to get back to work. As he left the office, I approached the medicine cabinet and started searching for a sedative for myself. I had been slightly agitated by my wife's recent behavior and the feeling that I was no longer needed by my family because they were already doing well without me. As I reached for a small bottle, the office door swung open. I quickly grabbed the bottle and tried to discreetly slip it into my pocket. "What are you doing?" my returning colleague asked. "Oh, I thought I'd look for something for a headache." "I've got a bit of a headache," I replied. "But you know that this cabinet only contains potent medications. You can find aspirin in the top drawer, it's always there." "Yes, you're right. I must have been affected by the fresh air," I said, relieved that he hadn't noticed me hiding the bottle. "You know, if I'm not really needed here, I might just head home, lie down with my headache. I'll be back tomorrow." "Yeah, go ahead, rest up. You do look a bit pale." I hurried back to my car and soon found myself on the way home. On the way, I stopped at a store and picked up a few bottles of beer, thinking that since no one would be home until evening, I could sit in front of the television and watch a football game. As I was leaving the parking lot, a black cat, a mature one, jumped onto my path. "Hey, move it! Get out of here!" I shouted at the cat and honked my horn, but it didn't hurry to leave. So I slowly started to approach, honking again. Only then did it clear my path and I drove home. We lived in a large apartment building, and our apartment was on the top floor. There was a designated underground parking area for cars. As I got into the apartment, I had to go through the usual routine of parking, taking the elevator, and walking through the hallway. And there I was, entering the apartment. Hoping to be alone until evening, I noticed my wife's coat in the hallway, as well as another man's jacket and shoes that definitely weren't mine. Suspecting something was wrong, I began to quietly move down the corridor, and at the bedroom door I heard unmistakable sounds of lovemaking. Until I opened the door, I held on to the hope that my son had brought a girlfriend over, but why were they in her bedroom? Plus, my wife's coat indicated that she was home. To dispel any doubts, I swung the bedroom door open, and there I saw Donna engaging in intimacy with some man. "Dennis? Oh God, this isn't what you think," she began to explain, covering herself with a blanket. And what was I supposed to think? The man jumped out of the bed and quickly pulled up his pants. "You bastard," I yelled and went after him, fists flying. But he apparently realized that the truth was on my side and didn't put up much of a fight. He tried to escape from the apartment, but before he left, I managed to give him a few punches to his face. My wife pressed herself against the bed in the meantime. "What the hell? So this is what your important meeting was all about?" I said to her when we were left alone. "Dennis, I understand how this looks, but you also have to understand me. I've been going through a lot lately. There's been a lot of stress at work, and you haven't been easy to deal with either. You come home and all you talk about are your patients. What do I care about them? I have enough worries of my own." "Bitch," I muttered, "you only care about finding someone to blame." I noticed that during the fight, the sleeve of my jacket had come slightly undone, so I took it off and tossed it onto the bed. Then I grabbed a pack of beer that had fallen on the floor and headed to the living room. Donna stayed in the bedroom. I didn't want to see her at that moment. "Hey, Dennis," she said, approaching me a few minutes later. "I'm sorry. I'm a fool. I shouldn't have done that." He was just so gentle and quiet. That's all I needed lately. You can shut up for all I care. I don't need your excuses. I've seen enough, I replied. She remained silent for a few minutes, then went to the kitchen. After a while she returned. Dennis, I'm really sorry. I messed up big time and I'm really upset about this. We're out of pills in the medicine cabinet. Do you happen to have any sedatives? I remembered I had brought some medication with me. Check the jacket. There should be some there, I told her. She went away and I stayed on the couch and turned on the TV. About an hour passed, and I noticed that my wife hadn't left the bedroom. It seemed a bit strange to me she couldn't have fallen asleep so suddenly. Just in case I went to check. But when I entered, I saw her sitting on the bed staring into space, muttering something to herself. Hey, stop playing dumb, I thought. You really hurt me, and I don't know, I guess I'll just live apart for a while. I can't sleep in the same bed with you. But she continued to sit in the same position and staggered slightly. I went over to her and touched her shoulder, but she was still unresponsive and hummed something very softly. Hey, what's wrong with you? On the bed, I saw the bottle from which she had taken the pills. I took it and looked at the label. Only now I noticed that it was a very strong tranquilizer. I must have gotten mixed up and grabbed the wrong bottle when my colleague came back to the office. Oh shit, I swore, but for a moment I was amused by her behavior. She reminded me completely of one of my patients. I called my colleague and asked for his help, promising to do anything for him as long as he didn't tell anyone about it. He brought the medicine that was supposed to help her, but it didn't work right away. Hey, how much did she take? He asked. I don't know. I didn't see it. The colleague started counting the pills that Anne was missing. You didn't take any yourself? I asked. No, so she took an elephantine dose. Who takes that many pills? She thought it was aspirin because she had a headache. I guess she didn't read the label. Donna didn't start waking up until the next day. A coworker didn't stay with me long the night before because he had to go back to work. But he left me more medication to help Donna fully recover. She started asking me what had happened. I reminded her that she had mixed up her meds. What medication? She asked. Did I get excited about the trip? Why are you here? You were supposed to be at the country house by now? What the fuck are you doing? Are you faking it? But it looked like she really had forgotten for a few days. I called a colleague in a flash, and he suggested it was a side effect of taking a large amount of medication at one time. He said that her memories should come back eventually, but he wasn't sure because it had never happened before. I asked her about the man I had seen in our bedroom and described his appearance, but she had absolutely no idea who he was. Apparently she had only met him the other day. It seems that her leap into bed with another man was an impulsive act. I didn't know whether to forgive her or not. I didn't tell my son the whole truth. The day before, when he came home, I explained that Mom was just tired, and in the morning he went out again. But I told Donna everything that had happened, asking her not to tell her son that his mother had decided to have a lover. She and I slept apart for a while. I remembered that another man had touched her, and I could no longer love her as my woman. I waited for her memory to come back before deciding anything. After about 4 weeks, she got her memory back. I've had time to think about it. I decided that we should live apart for a while. She cried and begged me to forgive her, but it was still hard for me to do that. Of course, it was our son who was the most worried. It's always hard to hide a tense parental relationship from children. And of course, I then told him everything and he understood and supported me. I thought about her actions for a long time. The most unpleasant thing was that she brought her lover to our house and put him in our bed. This was a pivotal moment in my decision to file for divorce. After all, forgiveness is possible for any act, but I no longer had any desire to continue a relationship with this woman. We are probably two different people. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, please like and leave a comment. Your support is important to us and will help promote this video. Thank you for watching.